Welcome back! The Doctor is in! Today I'm continuing with my mini-series on BattleTech Technical Readout 3150. As I described in the previous videos, the only new material in this technical readout were notable units. All the actual units themselves had appeared in various other publications prior to this TRO. The purpose of writing new notable units was both to have some new material for the book, but also to help fill in the 5-year gap between the 3145 TRO and the year 3150. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Today I'm going to finish up the vehicle notable units that I wrote for this TRO. Already on the screen is the Sheriff Infantry Support Tank. For this, the notable unit is Centurion Cletus Downing. Again, I'm writing something in the periphery. If you've listened to my previous videos, you know that I wrote a lot of periphery material, especially during my early writing projects for BattleTech. In this case, we're talking about a notable unit from the Marian Hegemony. And I pronounce hegemony with a hard G because it's a Greek word that's spelled the same and everything, and I don't like pronouncing it with the soft G. So, the Marians, in this case, in 3148, called in Downing's Century, which is the Imperator's Glory Century of the Vigiles Urbani, so the City Watch, basically, and essentially used them to break up a protest, which soon broke into a riot, and he committed what would, in this reality, be a war crime. That sort of thing happens in dictatorships like the Marian Hegemony. So, of course, Downing and the rest of his century were transferred to a different world so that they would not be the focus of reprisal attacks from the civilians they had just brutally oppressed. And I want to mention real quick, the reason that I write so much material for the periphery in these notable units is because I'm pretty sure none of the other writers would do so. I wanted to make sure that the periphery gets a significant amount of attention, whereas for a very long time, only the inner sphere nations and the clans have gotten a great deal of attention. So this is me leaning on my prior experience, as well as trying to make sure that the situation in less explored and less well-published realms is at least comparable, if not equal. So, let's move on from the Sheriff. The next unit was the Zon Heavy Transport. There was a lot of free space on this one, so I wrote 2 notable units. First, Sao Wei Yuxiao Wu, who commands a Home Guard auxiliary detachment on New Canton. And this one, while I don't give a year, refers to some of the recent conflict between the Federated Sons and the Compelling Confederation. Specifically, it talks about Julian Davian attacking on New Canton, and how the defenders really didn't have much to oppose them. So, because Wu had such a drive to train constantly, which his men hated, it allowed them to overcome the attackers, which is a rare victory. So while he and his men were guarding Supply Station 14S against a company of Federated Sons vehicles that showed up and dropped off infantry, Wu ordered his vehicles into the attack, overcame the enemy vehicles, wasted all the enemy infantry. He lost half his men, but protected the supply station. And that's the sort of victory that the Compelling Confederation is all about. They are much more concerned about victory than personnel, for the most part. The other notable unit is not a crew or an individual, but it's actually a vehicle itself named Joyride. And It used to be a militia vehicle on second try. Now it belongs to a mercenary command. And it came by way of one of the locals on the world's second try. Basically stole the vehicle and defected, hoping to join the mercenary units. And he brought the tank with him. So, just kind of an interesting way to show something different now. Okay, so that was 2 inner sphere units for the Zahn. Now we move on to the Arrow 4 assault vehicle. So this is a vehicle that mounts Arrow 4 missile artillery. In this case, the notable units are both people. There's not a specific vehicle itself. And we've got Corporal Lem Flyswatter Goldman. Corporal Goldman is from the Filtvelt. Is one of the Filtvelt Coalition. They are a breakaway periphery state that used to be part of the Federated Sons. In this case, it's talking about how in 3146, Goldman had his platoon out of maneuvers and tried to respond to a pirate raid on Dune City. By firing on the dropship while it was still airborne, he managed to get a hit on the engine. The dropship crashed. It left the pirates behind. They withdrew into the wilderness and are occasionally raiding for provisions, but they've been avoiding the 3rd Filtvelt Citizens Militia ever since. The other notable unit is Sergeant Blondie McSwitch, which was me just wanting to have a funny sounding name. And as far as I'm concerned, if your name is Blondie and your last name is McSwitch, that's pretty funny. This is... oh, where is this taking place? This is, if you remember from my previous video where I talked about the Circinian Dread pirate group, McSwitch's unit came under attack from that same pirate group and fared fairly badly, but McSwitch was hauling a gun trailer and wasted no time in using the AC-20 to take out the pirates. So, since I wrote the gun trailers and I wrote this AAV, it kind of allowed me to tie those two events or these two entries together into a single event. That's something that if you can do, it's great. It's not necessary or required when you're writing for TROs, but the more you can kind of link these things and show that it's all a single universe, the better. Next is the Sniper Artillery. So this is one of the classic one of the classic artillery units in BattleTech. Artillery in BattleTech is notoriously bad on the tabletop game, but good in the fiction. So here we've got Captain Kenneth Medchelk, who is member of Wild's Jokers, which is a subcommand of Banson's Raiders. In this case, I'm writing something that is dealing with the Banson's Raiders. If you recall from the early Dark Age material, was one of the more popular units during the early fiction of that period. So here I have got them assisting Julian Davian with the 1st Davian Guards in 3146 in the Battle for New Syrtis. And this battle involved the 12th Vagan Rangers, Warrior House Haritsu of the Capellans, and the Dynasty Guard of the Capellans. And here Medchelk's company delivered precision support fire to help relieve the 12th Vagan Rangers. And in doing so, they took out a company of the Dynasty Guards so that the mercenaries could retreat, although, even so, the 12th Vagan Rangers suffered heavy casualties. The other notable unit is Lieutenant Antonio Breckenridge. Breckenridge was in the Cathal Capellan March Militia, so here's another Federated Sons unit that we're talking about. Now, Breckenridge was a mech warrior whose Phoenix Hawk was taken out in 3138 by the 1st McCarran's Armored Cavalry. Again, we're dealing with the Capellans and the Federated Sons. Now, because of the wounds he suffered when his mech was destroyed, he could no longer be a mech warrior, so he was reassigned to a sniper unit. He has a burning desire to get revenge upon the Capellans, so he has been drilling constantly so that he's gain the attention of his superiors, and they're promising him a combat assignment. Of course, in the military, promises may not always come true. And the final unit that I wrote is the Gulltopper Omni Monitor. So this is an Omni vehicle. And while I had a lot of space, I tried to write just a single notable unit. I probably could have written another smaller one, or shrunk this one down and written another. However, the unit is Lieutenant Helen Zitobor. If you spell Zebator backwards, you get robotics, which was a toy system in the early 1980s. In this case, Lieutenant Zitobor is with the 15th Lyran Regulars, and when they were attacked by a Trinary from the 9th Falcon Talon, she was thrown into the mix. So the Omni Monitor is basically on the frontier with the clan and occupation zones. So when the Jade Falcons launched their Mongol attacks, this is one of the events during that period. So this is set in February 3146. So I have her standing her ground against Jade Falcon Omni-Mechs and actually managing to take down 4 all by herself. It's no mean feat for a vehicle to take down a battle mech, much less 4. So that's obviously someone who deserves to be considered a notable unit. And that is the last of the notable units that were vehicles, except for the VTOLs, which I will cover when I do the aerospace units. So that's the end of part 3 of Technical Readout 3150. I hope you like this series. I'm trying to give you a little insight into why I make the decisions I do, creating these notable units for this TRO, and frankly the same basic philosophy for any TRO that I'm writing it. Try to link events and tie references together so that people can see perhaps more of the overall storyline than just a single entry might give them. So that's all I've got for you today. I'll be back with part 4. Until then, the Doctor is out.